Welcome to Sacred Stories, the place where we uncover the greatest mysteries surrounding the history of humanity. Today, we will explore one of the most enigmatic prophecies of all time, one that might predict the end of the Catholic Church and even the end of the world. I'm talking about the Prophecy of Saint Malachy, which describes, in a mysterious way, all the popes who would lead the Church until the end of times. And the most intriguing part? It predicts the last pope, known only as Peter the Roman. This pope would lead the Church in the midst of great tribulations, and the end would be near. Are we about to witness the fulfillment of this prophecy? Prepare for a deep dive into the revelations, mysteries, and secrets surrounding this apocalyptic prediction. The authenticity and meaning of the prophecy. The first big question about the prophecy of Saint Malachy is it true? Some believe it was written by Saint Malachy, but many think it was forged in the 16th century, long after his death. Even so, the accuracy of the descriptions of popes who have already lived is impressive. Many popes match the characteristics attributed to them in the prophecy. But what about Peter the Roman? He is described as the last pope, which raises even more questions. Will he be the spiritual leader of the Church during a global and spiritual crisis? And what does Great Tribulations mean? Will he represent the end of the Church as we know it, or will he be a leader who brings a radical transformation? Interpretations vary, but one thing is certain, this prophecy promises a major turning point. The connection with the apocalypse and the end of times. Now, let's connect the dots. The prophecy of Saint Malachy strongly resembles the events described in the apocalypse. In Matthew 24, Jesus talks about the signs of the end of times, wars, famines, plagues, earthquakes, and great tribulations. These signs resonate with the description in the prophecy, where Peter the Roman would rule during times of persecution and destruction. But what does this mean for us? Is the destruction of Rome literal, or will it be a spiritual crisis that will shake the Catholic faith? Who is the terrible judge? Could he be a reference to the final judgment of Christ, or perhaps to a great change in the Church, a transformation that will require a new kind of faith and leadership? The scariest part is that the prophecy mentions that, during this time of great tribulation, the Church will undergo such a drastic transformation that it will never be the same again. Pope Francis, the last pope. Now, let's look at the present and ask, could Pope Francis be the Peter the Roman of the prophecy? Many believe he is the last pope, as his papacy has been marked by a series of radical changes in the Church. His focus on social issues, his reforms, and his stance toward the modern world make him a unique figure, different from previous popes. Some see this as a sign that we are living through the final days of the Church, as described by Malachy. Pope Francis seems to be the leader of a Church in crisis, about to face the great tribulations mentioned in the prophecy. But is he really Peter the Roman? Or is he just the beginning of a great spiritual transformation that will lead us into an uncertain future? The big question is, what will happen after him? Is the Church truly at its end, or is it simply going through a phase of great changes? Hidden truths and unresolved mysteries. The truth is that the prophecy of Saint Malachy raises more questions than answers. Are we living through the end of the Catholic Church as we know it? Or are we simply witnessing the transition to something new? And is Peter the Roman really the last pope, or is he a symbolic figure representing the end of an era? Will the destruction of Rome be literal, or does it represent the spiritual collapse of the Church? And who is the terrible judge? Will it be Christ, as many believe, or something else? These are questions that still don't have definitive answers. But one thing is certain. We are living in times of great uncertainty and transformation, and the prophecy of Malachy continues to make us question the future of the Church and the world. To fully understand the prophecy of Saint Malachy and how it fits into history, it's crucial to examine the historical context of the popes who preceded it. Each of them is described with an enigmatic phrase in the prophecy, reflecting unique characteristics or events during their papacy. For example, Pope John Paul II, described as the angelic shepherd, had a huge influence on key moments in the Church, such as the fall of communism in Europe and his travels around the world. Pope Benedict XVI, called Glory of the Olive, was a figure who faced major internal and external challenges, including the sexual abuse crisis and his attempts to reform the Church. By looking at these popes and their respective descriptions, we see a timeline that seems to align with global events and the transformations the Church has faced over the years. This leads us to question, what will happen after Pope Francis? The answer to this question might hold the key to understanding what truly awaits us in the apocalyptic times. The emergence of Peter the Roman and its implications. Now, we come to the central figure of the prophecy, Peter the Roman. But who is he really? What does this mysterious figure mean, and why is he destined to be the last pope? Some scholars believe that the name, Peter the Roman, is symbolic, representing the continuity of the apostolic tradition started by Saint Peter, the first pope. Others, however, suggest that it could have a literal aspect, perhaps a pope of Italian origin or with a direct connection to the Church's ancient roots in Rome. The most intriguing part is that the prophecy states that during his papacy, there will be great destruction in Rome. What could this mean? Will the city be literally destroyed, or are we talking about a spiritual crisis so deep that it will cause the Church to lose its global influence? The fact that he is Roman also raises questions about the relationship between the Church and modern times. Could the crisis ahead be so significant that it will destabilize not only Rome but the entire Catholic tradition? The role of the terrible judge and the final judgment. One of the scariest parts of the prophecy of Saint Malachy is the mention of the terrible judge, who will appear at the time of Rome's destruction. Many believe this judge is a reference to the final judgment of Christ, when all will be called to account for their actions. But what if this figure symbolizes something else? Some suggest that the terrible judge could be a metaphor for a great leader or spiritual figure who will emerge in the end times, perhaps a figure like the Antichrist, who will attempt to deceive the masses before the return of Christ the Redeemer. The concept of a judge implies that there will be a separation between the good and the bad, a moment of revelation where the true intentions of every person will be exposed. This idea of judgment brings up significant questions about what lies ahead. Will the Church truly survive the tribulation, or is this the moment of its ultimate fall? The future of the Church and global transformation. The future of the Catholic Church, according to the prophecy of Saint Malachy, is closely tied to the figure of the last pope and the times of Great Tribulation. Some interpreters of the prophecy suggest that, after the destruction of Rome and the final judgment, the Church will undergo a radical transformation, perhaps becoming something completely different from the institution we know today. This leads us to think about the Church's role in the future. Will it continue to be a great spiritual force, or will it be a transformed Church, more adapted to the new realities of the modern world? The emergence of new religions, the loss of the Church's influence on social and political matters, and changes in morality and spiritual values could be signs that the Church is evolving but also facing unprecedented challenges. What does this mean for the Christian faith as a whole? The prophecy suggests that this will be a time of global redefinition, and the Church will either reinvent itself or face its own destruction. The prophecy and its relevance in the modern world. As we live in an era of great uncertainties, political crises, wars, natural disasters, and economic changes, the prophecy of Saint Malachy continues to resonate. Its relevance in the modern world is clear, especially as global and spiritual issues intertwine. Are we closer to witnessing the Great Tribulations predicted by Malachy? Amid growing secularization and the decline of faith in many parts of the world, the future of the Catholic Church seems more uncertain than ever. Some believe the prophecy points to the need for radical reform, or even a new form of spirituality, capable of dealing with the challenges of the contemporary world. The Church's internal crises, including the abuse scandal and the loss of relevance in many regions, lead us to ask, is the last pope the answer to these dilemmas, or will he be the final breath of an institution on the verge of extinction? The real question is, are we living in a time where everything is about to change, and if so, how will we prepare for what's coming? We've reached the end, but the real question is, what's coming next? The prophecy of Saint Malachy leaves us with much to ponder about the future of the Church. Are we witnessing the end times? Only time will tell, but we must prepare now. Stay tuned for more mysteries and insights in upcoming videos. Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, you won't want to miss what's next.